Hello, hello, hello. I am about a minute early. So I am going to try to share this with my personal page, and I won't get started until right at 7 o'clock. I hope everybody is doing well. Okay, let me share. Oh, I think I have to go out of here. Hey, to those of you who've joined already, I'm a little bit early and I am trying to share this to my personal page. There we go. Hey. I am using this software that I can't see your comments. I'm going to see if I can look at them on my phone. But would you put in the chat, in the comments, where you are joining me from? I want to see the reach. I want to see how many parents I'm able to reach and where. Because I know I have a lot of international people who follow my page. So maybe I can see them on my phone, even though the software that I'm using doesn't allow me to see them where I am right now. So if you can put in the comments um, your city, state, and or country. If you're not in the United States, put your country of where you are located. That I would appreciate that. And if you're watching this on the replay, if you can put replay, so I can tell how many people watched it live and how many people saw it afterwards. Put replay and then put your city, state, and or country if you're not in the United States. So, and or in the United States. Okay, I'm seeing South Georgia. Let me turn the volume down. Seeing South Georgia, Australia. Hey, Adrian from Australia. Graniteville, South Carolina. Okay, cool. Cool. Well, I am going to go ahead and get started just because I have a lot to cover and I'm long winded. I'm a speaker. What do you expect? And I'm going to try not to keep you too long because I have a lot of things to do and I'm sure you do too. So, for those of you who aren't familiar with me and you haven't been following my page for a while, I'll just tell you a little bit about who I am and what I do. So, my name is Jackie Bruton, of course. You see that on the screen. And I have, for the past 21 years, I have been going into middle and high schools talking to teenagers in their health classes about love, sex, and relationships. So, I'm basically fulfilling a requirement that they already have in their schools, which is to go over this information. The teachers or the schools just bring me in to do it in addition to what the teachers are teaching them. And it's not that I'm supposed to give them everything they're supposed to know about love, sex, and relationships, but I bring a different perspective than what a health teacher might bring because I'm there for typically about 3 hours. So middle schools, I do 3 days in the Metro Atlanta area, which is where I live. I do 3 days because they're 50-minute, 1-hour classes. And then high schools, they're 90-minute classes. So I'll do 2 days. So it's about 3 hours I get with the students to speak with them. In addition to what I do in the counties near where I live, I also go across the country and do assemblies. And I prefer classroom presentations because it's a discussion and not a presentation. So I can answer their questions, I can address their flawed thinking. And when I'm in an assembly and you have 400, 500, 1,000 kids in the auditorium, it's a presentation because I can't really entertain questions. So, and I have 2 presentations. So the one that I do when I'm in the classrooms is about sex. If you're following me, you've seen most of my letters that I've gotten. I've received 17,000 letters from high school students. And I'm always amazed at the response that I get from students. I tell people this, I just can't believe it myself. But a lot of schools won't allow me to talk to their kids about sex, which, this is very sensitive, very controversial. So I get it. Plus, schools don't get measured based on whether kids have sex or not. They get measured based on test scores, based on graduation rates. So I have another presentation that I do in those schools and states that don't want me to do a sex message. They just want me to talk about good choices, having dreams, visions, valuing your education, those kind of things. So that's kind of my background. So let me tell you what prompted me to do this live. And I've done a couple of lives before in the last couple months. But last week I posted something on my page. So can you hear me? Can you hear me? Is the sound okay? I forgot to put my AirPods in. Will somebody put in the chat whether you can hear me okay? I keep saying in the chat. I mean in the comments. I think there is a delay. If anybody's typing anything in the comments, I can't see it. Okay, thank you, Jessica. She said, yes, ma'am, they can hear me. So I posted I put a post last week that I said, 8th grade girls are telling me, okay, let me back up and explain to you why I talk about girls more than I talk about boys. So in middle schools, the schools separate by gender. So I am only talking to girls and there's a guy who's talking to the guys. And so I talk to more girls than I do guys. When I do high school classes, they're co-ed classes. So I do have feedback and stuff from guys, but I have more from girls. And up until a couple of years ago, my target audience was girls and moms of teen girls. And then moms of teen girls started saying, well, I also have a son. Can you do something for my son? So I've written 2 books. The first book I wrote was for teen girls, 7 Secrets Guys Will Never Tell You. A teen girl's guide on love, sex, and relationships. And this book was written based on what I've learned in the class over the last 20 years and things that guys have told me in the class. They are very honest, much more honest than I would ever expect. And then 2 years ago, I wrote this book for teen boys called The Truth About Sex, Real Stories from Teen Guys Like You. And this book has over 50 letters from teenage boys. This one has over 100 letters. So they're not just hearing from me. And I think that's what makes my presentation so effective too, is because they get to hear from their peers. So they're hearing what their peers are saying. So anyway, I was at a middle school week before last, and the 8th grade girls were telling me all of these, like I've had sex in the 7th grade, and all of this drama and all of this emotional, turmoil that they're getting from relationships. And then they're telling me I've been my boyfriend of 1, 2, 3 years. I'm like, you're in the 8th grade. How have you had a boyfriend for 3 years? And so anyway, I posted that last week and I said, and I think I put a little eye roll after I said 8th grade girls are telling me that they've had boyfriends for 3 years. And then I said, what age do you think is a good age for you to date? And got a lot of responses. But I also got some responses from people who were saying I was being judgmental, that haven't you heard of puppy love? They said the comparison that I put between if you're going to give your kid driver's ed, shouldn't you give them relationship education? And somebody said that was a ridiculous comparison. They said it's always been this way. I had a boyfriend when I was in kindergarten, but that doesn't mean there's anything physical going on. Just because these kids say they have boyfriends, that's not really what they mean. It's just puppy love. Well, let me tell you the problem with that logic. That it's always been this way, and when I was a kid, I did the same thing. It's a different world. It really is. And I tell parents all the time that sometimes I think we give our kids advice based on outdated information. And so let me give you an example. So I remember when I was growing up, most of my friends' parents would say, if somebody hits you, you hit them back. Now, I didn't hear that because I had one of those turn the other cheek kind of parents. But a lot of parents told their kids, if somebody hits you, you hit them back. Well, guess what, y'all? That's when they were fighting with fists. Now they're fighting with guns. So if you give your kid that advice today, they could get killed. And then in the 1960s, there were 2 STDs that we knew about, gonorrhea and syphilis. They were both cured with penicillin. And so if somebody got pregnant or had sex as a teenager, the worst thing that might happen is that they might get pregnant. But now we have over 25 STDs, some of which don't have a cure and some of which can be deadly. So I just think that comparing things today to the way they used to be, it is really a different world. I mean, you think about porn. Back in the day, if somebody watched porn, they had to find a magazine. They had to go and get a physical, like something physical, and they had to hide and watch it. Now they can watch porn at their fingertips on their phones. Bullying. Like, bullying was going on when I was a kid. Yeah, but at least when you were a kid, you probably could get a reprieve from the bully when you went home. Now these kids have to get bullied online. There's cyberbullying. There's social media. So it really, really is a different world today in all regards, but especially when it comes to dating and relationships. And let me share some of my concerns. So I have me some notes here that I don't forget. Let me share some of the concerns that I have with the culture today. And this has been going on for a long time too. You know how when kids are really little, especially if it's a handsome little boy, you know how people would say, oh, look at him, he's so handsome. Boy, I know you're going to be a heartbreaker. You're going to break some hearts. Like, why are we normalizing and socializing like kids that you're going to be a heartbreaker? Like, we're basically telling them this is your fate. Like, why? I think, like, a lot of people say I'm overreacting. And I tell people, I say, if you had talked to teenagers for 20 plus years, if you had talked to a couple of thousands of teenagers, if you had received 17,000 letters, if you had had students crying in your arms after class, if you had gotten the messages on Instagram and YouTube that I've gotten, like, I don't know that you're exaggerating and not exaggerating, you're overreacting. I can't say that I'm overreacting because of what I've seen over the last 20 years. So I ask 8th grade girls if there's pressure on them to be in a relationship. And usually about 50% of the class will say, yeah, there is a lot of pressure. And some of them will say the pressure comes from their moms. And I remember a 8th grade teacher who had a son said she had gotten phone calls and text messages from moms of girls asking her, why won't you let your son have a girlfriend? Because my daughter likes him. And she's like, because I want my son to focus on his education. Like, I don't want him to, my clothes are all falling off. I don't want my son to get caught up on relationships. There's a quote that I have in my book for girls that says, and it's not my quote, it's a quote that a friend of mine said, which I thought was brilliant, and I hated that I didn't think of it first. But it said, somewhere along the line, we messed up. And we made girls believe that chasing a relationship was more important than chasing their dreams. And we made girls believe that no matter how beautiful, how talented, and how intelligent they were, that their beauty, their talent, and their intellect could only be validated by a relationship. She said, somewhere along the line, we messed up and the world has suffered ever since. And I think she's right. Because I see 8th grade girls who are absolutely beautiful with low self-esteem. I see girls who are really talented with low self-esteem, really intelligent with low self-esteem. And in most cases, the reason their self-esteem is so low is because they're not in a relationship, because nobody picked them. And as a matter of fact, I was at a school once, and when I went back the second day, I said, did anybody learn anything yesterday that may have made you think differently than you thought before? And this young lady, beautiful young lady, raised her hand, and she says, yeah, I realized that I'm good enough because I always thought I wasn't pretty because I don't have a boyfriend. And she was beautiful. But let me tell you the next iteration of that. Now I have girls who are telling me I didn't think I was pretty because nobody asked me for a new picture. And I'm like, so maybe they respect you enough not to ask you for a new picture. And so they're taking it as rejection because there's all of this focus on your value is based on whether you were in a relationship or not. And I think that is so very, very, very problematic. But even when sex isn't involved, there's so much drama that comes with relationships. And I just think, especially in middle school, I just think they would be better served if they focused on things that would help them be successful as an adult. And That's their education, not a relationship at their age. And when somebody says, you know, 5th or 6th grade, 7th grade, it's crazy. And I printed out um I printed out a few things to read you of letters that I've gotten. I think all of these are from 8th grade girls, I think. So this girl says, when I was in the 6th grade, I was 11 years old, I fell in love. I came so close to doing so many things with him. Once we broke up, he was a jerk. I was glad I didn't give him any. But ever since then, I was trying to have sex so I could feel loved. This is an 8th grade girl. She is like, she should not be thinking that sex is going to give her love. This girl says, Dear Miss Jackie, before I moved here, I met this guy and we became really fond of each other. It wasn't until I moved to the other side of the nation that we started dating. I guess I got too attached and he started liking other people. He said he needed someone physically there and our long distance relationship wasn't enough. So a week later, I broke up with him, but I still wore the necklace that he gave me in hopes that he would love me again. But after having you in class, you helped me realize I don't need him. Now, for the first time in 8 months of loving, crying, longing, and self-anger, I was able to live a day without his necklace. Thank you for walking into this classroom. You truly saved me. Y'all, she's in the 8th grade and she says for the first time in 8 months that she's not hating herself, anger. And so that means this relationship that she had was probably in the 7th grade. This is insane to me. It is insane to me. I have a number of other stories, and this is just to show you why I take this so seriously, because I see the fallout from romanticizing relationships at such a young age. It's just that's the longer that they have to deal with, number one, romantic feelings and hormones. So there's a stat that says girls who start dating at 13, 56% of them have had sex by the age of 18. But girls who wait to date until they're 16, only 20% of them have had sex by the age of 18. And to me, it just makes sense. Because the earlier you start dating, the earlier the person's going to say, we need to take this to the next level. And so it's like, why rush that? When they're at the point where they're making their decisions based on impulse and emotions, just based on their stage of brain development. I just think their brains are not developed to the point where they can not make emotional decisions in the heat of the moment in a relationship that they swear is going to last forever. Like at 12, 13 years old, they swear. And then they'll always, when I tell them in class that most of them are dating their future ex, and I said, because when you date somebody, the relationship typically ends one of two ways: you marry them or you break up with them. And as a teenager, the chances are much, much greater that the person you're dating will be your ex than your spouse. Like there's always a girl in the class who say, no, my grandmother and my grandfather, they started dating in the 8th grade and they've been married for 50 years. And I'm like, honey, it used to happen a whole lot more often than it did today, because people married somebody that lived on their street. People married somebody that lived around the corner and they lived their whole lives. I said, today we live in a transient society. People move around a lot. It doesn't mean that you're going to hate the person. You're just not in control of where your life is going to end at your age. But this one, y'all, well, I have some other stories to tell you, but this was one I printed off because I shared a video. This was a few years ago, and a mom shared my video on her page, and she wrote this to the post. She says, smash or pass. Translation: would you have sex with them or not? This is the game my 11-year-old daughter and her friends play at recess. She and her friends stand in a circle, and one boy is chosen to go around the circle of girls and say if he would smash or pass that girl. Sickening, I know. What's more sickening is one of her friends, who is only 10 years old, is wearing turtlenecks in 90-degree weather because she has a hickey on her neck. Let me repeat. She's 10 years old. And if I recall, This girl's kids go to a private school. So a lot of times we'll say, oh, it must be those kids. Those kids do it. And not the kids here, not the, So let me give you a few other examples that makes me have the what's the word I'm looking for? That just makes me have the stance that I have about, I just think there is such thing as letting them date too early. 2 8th grade girls have told me during the time that I've been doing this that they got pregnant this summer between the 5th and 6th grade year, 11 years old. One young lady said, one young lady had a miscarriage, the other one had an abortion. So the one who had the abortion, she's in the 8th grade. She comes to me after class and she asked me if I know where she can go and get checked for STDs. And so she proceeds to tell me that she doesn't, without her mom knowing. That was the part. Because she didn't want her mom to know that she was still having sex, because she had gotten pregnant when she was 11 and her mom got her an abortion and her mom thought she stopped having sex. So here she is, now she's 13, 14. So 3 years later, and she's still like having sex. Let me see. Oh, then there was the 12-year-old, the girl who was 17. I put a post out there on Instagram once. And I said, it was for teens. It was, if you have any questions that you want me to answer, let me know in my DMs and I'll do a video response. And so this young lady sent a question and said, how do you move on after you mess up? And so I did the response, and then I reached back out to her in the DMs and said, here's my video response in case you don't see it in your feed. So she going to tell me that she got pregnant when she was 12 years old. She was at a private Christian school. She got pregnant by a 14-year-old who was also at the private Christian school. She was in the 7th grade. He was in the 9th grade. And another one, and this is the last story I'll share with you. Another one was the 8th grader who told me that when she was 11, her boyfriend of 2 years, so now it's her boyfriend of 2 years. So this is her boyfriend that she started having at 9. Puppy love, one would say. So now 2 years later, she's 11, he's 12. He asked her to have sex. She tells him no. And y'all, check this out. This is what he said to her. She said it was 2 weeks before Christmas. And she said he told her, if you have sex with me, you won't have to buy me anything for Christmas. I'm like, really? That's the line they're using now? Like, this would be my Christmas present? Like, really? Oh, Lord. So she said that when she refused, he pushed her up against the wall and choked her and left a bruise on her neck. So she said when she went home, she told her mom that the bruise was a hickey because she would rather get in trouble for having a hickey than get him in trouble for choking her. Yeah. She will be the same adult woman in an abusive marriage who's making excuses for her abusive husband. Y'all, this is an issue. This is an issue. So that's how bad the problem is. So here are some things that I would say, because this whole thing is, when should you let them date? And I'm not here to make your decision for you. You're the parent. It's your child. You decide. But I want you to understand, when you are making your decision about when you're going to let your child date, and that's your son or your daughter, even though much of what I've talked about up to this point is based on girls. I mean, I have stories from boys who said they started having sex at 11, 12 years old as well. I mean, crazy. But I just wanted to give you some things to consider as you make your decision. And so some people said, I know some people said, I want them to start at 16 because I want to be able to see how they navigate dating before they go to college. And I get that. And that seems fair. But I think maybe instead of attaching to an age to it, like simply saying you can date at 16 or you can date at 15 or you can date at 17, I think that it might be better to attach qualities and traits and things that they've learned to that age. So you say, okay, whatever your age is, let's say your age is 16, you say you can date at 16 if the following things are in place. Because you might have somebody who is 18 and they don't need to be dating just because they're not confident. just because they're a follower and not a leader. So here are some things that I think that you should have in place. Like, they need to be focused. They need to have a yes, a dream, a goal, a vision, something that they want so badly that they're not going to let anybody, anything keep them from getting it. And here's the thing. If you can help them discover what their yes is, what their vision is, their goal, you don't have to talk them out of sex, because they'll say it's not worth it because it could keep them from getting whatever that is. So kids who don't have a goal or a dream or anything to keep them, because they only consider something at-risk behavior if they think they're risking something. They only protect a future if they think they have a future. I think it was Jason Wilson. I'm going to see if I can get this because he says it so much more eloquently than I said. He said, and I posted it earlier, he said, he teaches all boys. He says, if you can teach a boy about the reason for their existence, they won't jeopardize that existence. I think that's powerful. And it's the same thing I tell the kids about having a yes. And what's your dream? What's your goal? What is it that's going to keep you from saying yes to all these other things, or that'll help you say no to other things? So I think if they're 16 or if they're 18, if they don't have a yes, they're at risk of making decisions that could jeopardize them becoming who they want to be. I think they need to demonstrate how to maintain healthy relationships with the family. Like, there's some things that you can say, if you can show me, that you're responsible at home, if you can show me that you can maintain a healthy relationship with your siblings, if you can show me that you can show respect to your parents, and if you can show me that in other ways that you have self-respect, then at 16 you can date. Because if they're 16 and they don't have those things, here's the other thing. Make sure they're confident. Because if they're not confident in who they are and what they stand for, that's going to be an issue. I received a message from a girl who had been in my class, and she sent me a message on Instagram, and she said, I wanted to ask this question in class, but I was embarrassed. She said, I just started dating a guy who has been sexually active before, and I am afraid that he's going to ask me to have sex, and I won't be able to say no. And I said to her, then you don't need to be dating anybody because you're not confident. I said, whether they've had sex or not. I said, because you have to get to the point where you're confident in who you are, what your standards are, so that nobody can talk you out of them. Because if you don't have standards, you're going to go with whatever theirs are. So the other thing is, make sure that they can have healthy friendships. So I interviewed Dr. Aldewan Tart, who's a psychologist, and he said that for his daughter, she was going to have to show him that she had 3 healthy friendships, girlfriends, because he did not want her to rely on a relationship to give her all of her validation. He's like, because when you have friendships and you're getting validated in ways other than relying on a romantic relationship, it's less likely that person then becomes your world and they're the only person in your ear. Like, you always want to have those good friends who can say, girl, I don't like the way he's treating you. Or tell the guy, I saw her with somebody else. Or so they need to have other friendships so that somebody else is in their ear besides just the person that they're romantically involved with. What else did I have over here? Okay, they're responsible, they're focused, they've demonstrated how to maintain healthy relationships with family members, they have healthy friendships, they're confident. Make sure they know how to set boundaries. Because one of the reasons why so many 8th grade girls tell me they've had sex is they didn't go there planning to have sex. They just didn't know how to say no. They didn't have any boundaries. And they didn't understand that if they don't respect your boundaries here, they're not going to respect them here. And so I teach a lot of this in class. I don't have time. I could teach a whole class here tonight with y'all. Teach them how to say no. Teach them that no is a complete sentence. They don't have to explain it. They don't have to justify it. And I get it. Like, if somebody calls you and says, can you bring a gallon of milk home? If you can do it, you text back. I mean, if they text you, you text back yes. But if you can't do it, you feel like you have to say no because I don't have time. That becomes problematic in relationships, that people are doing things that they don't really want to do, but they feel like I don't have a good enough reason to justify why I don't want to do it. You don't need a reason. Like, no is a complete sentence. Teach them what to do when somebody starts pressuring them. How to get out of it. The signs of a controlling and abusive relationship. Like, a lot of teenagers think, when I asked the girls 2 weeks ago, 8th grade girls, how many of you know somebody who has been in an abusive relationship? A third of the class raised their hand, 8th grade girls. And I said, that number's low because half of y'all don't even know what an abusive relationship is. They don't understand that when they're really jealous, that's a sign of control. They think it's, oh, he must really love me because they're jealous. Or they think, oh, the fact that they want to check my phone, like that means they're mistaking so much of what is control. They are mistaking it for love. And I blame so much of it on, and I know people say the media, but I'm telling y'all, when they're watching all of these reality television shows where there's drama and chaos, and now they don't want nice guys, they want bad boys. I know if you have a son, I'm so sorry because I'm talking so much about girls. I probably need to do one just for parents of sons. Tell me if you're in the comments, tell me if you want to do something about parents for sons, because that's a whole different. But it's probably better if I do like a webinar or something, because it's really hard to do it on Facebook Live. What else did I have? But try to role play these scenarios. So the bottom line is, don't just set it by an age. There have to be some other things other than just the age. So it's like, yes, 16 may be the age if these things are in place. If you can show me these things. And then have your child help you, like, determine what are those things. Like, involve them in the decision and the criteria. What would you want, like, if you had a child, what would you say for your child? And y'all would be surprised how when I ask them, like, how would you parent your child? Some of the things that they're able to do, they'll say, I'm not gonna let my child do that. I would never let my child. I'm not giving my child a cell phone until they're 16, but you're 14 and you have one. And I'm like, so why are you saying that you wouldn't give your child a cell phone at 16, but you have one? And they're like, well, once I got it, it's hard to give it up now that I have it, but I wish I had never gotten it. Yes, 8th grade girls are telling me they wish they had never gotten their cell phones because of the drama that's related to social media. Y'all would be surprised how kids really think. You really would. I wish I could take all of y'all into the classroom and have you be a fly on the wall when I'm in these classes and hear what these kids are saying. They're things that I would have never thought, that they do want boundaries. Like, they do want a relationship with their parents. Parents think, oh, they don't want to be around me once they get a certain age. No, they want to have a relationship. That's a whole nother presentation. But anyway, so I hope this has been helpful. Okay, I'm looking on my phone now, and I'm seeing some people saying, yes, I have a son, I have a son, I have a son. Okay, if you're on here, can you drop in the chat where you are looking, where city and state and or country? We have somebody from Australia. Thank you. I don't even know what the time difference is in Australia. But anyway, let me know where I just want to know the reach of this. And then if you're watching this on the replay, please put replay and then put your city, state, and or country. But I have some help for you and I have some resources. So I told you earlier, I have 2 books, one for teen girls, seven Secrets Guys Will Never Tell You, A Teen Girl's Guide on Love, Sex, and Relationships. This has over 100 letters. I have amazing endorsements and testimonials from people who have read the book. And then I wrote this book for teen boys, the Truth About Sex, Real Stories from Teen Guys Like You. And this has over 50 letters, and it's broken into 2 sections, this book. They're the 10 best reasons why teen guys have told me they abstain, and the 10 worst reasons why teen guys have told me they had sex. At the end of each one of the chapters, they're very short chapters, because one of the reasons why it took me so long to write this book is because everybody kept telling me boys don't read books. But then boys will say, yeah, boys don't read books that aren't interesting, but they do read books. But I did take that into consideration, and I wrote the chapters. They're 4 to 8 pages long. The font is bigger than it is for the girls. And at the end of each one of these, there are 5 self-reflection questions that they can ask themselves about what they just read. There are over 50 letters from teenage boys. And it's a great book for a boys group because it's almost like you have your curriculum here. You have 100 questions, like 20 sessions with boys. You could talk about a chapter every night, and you could then, it has all the questions to ask. The other thing for this book, I'll tell you that a dad told me, he drove to my house to get this book because he found some stuff in his daughter's diary. And I don't recommend you going through your daughter's diary, but that's a whole nother conversation. And he said, I need this book. So he and his daughter read this book, a chapter every night. And he said initially she didn't want to read it. He said by the second chapter, she was telling him it's time to read it. He said, I never had to address what I read in her diary because everything that was in her diary was covered in this book. So I have these, but I also have an e-course at my academy, Jackie B Academy. I have an e-course called Dating Boundaries 101. And part of the reason I told you, the reason that a lot of teenagers have sex is they just haven't set their boundaries. And so the Dating Boundaries 101 covers why you need boundaries, and then 4 boundaries: people boundaries, places boundaries, physical boundaries, and media boundaries. And then what do you do if the person is not respecting your boundaries? And so that is 7 short videos. And at the end of it, there is a game plan that in each one of those 4 areas, this is for teen girls. She will write out a plan of what her boundaries are. Because whenever teen girls say, I didn't go there planning to have sex, what I say to them is, it's not enough not to plan to have sex. You must have a plan on how not to have sex, because the person that gets what they want is the person with the plan. And so what if the other person planned to have sex? They're the only one who had a plan. So you have to have this plan. So that Dating Boundaries e-course gives them this game plan. It's a digital download. They have this game plan of here are my boundaries in each one of these areas. And then I also have a master class for teen girls. So during the pandemic, one of the benefits of the pandemic was I couldn't go into schools anymore. So I did an 8-week master class. The first 2 sessions I did live, they were amazing. I just had a mom who commented on one of my posts yesterday and said her daughter was in my first session. And this was in 2020. She said she's in college now and she still keeps in touch with some of the girls that she met in that live. And she said that this book was an amazing resource for her daughter. So, but anyway, so there's a session for each one of the 7 secrets, and then there's a bonus session at the end. This one is on my thing, but in my academy. And just don't purchase this one. You purchase each one of the sessions separately. Don't purchase it until you are ready to watch it, because you only have access to that for 24 hours. The Boundaries e-course, you have 6 months access to that one. And then the moms who went through my masterclass for their daughters and had sons, they're like, why don't you do something like this for boys? So I created a masterclass for teen boys called Boys to Men Masterclass. And there are 5 sessions, each one of those 1 hour to an hour and a half for each session. I got amazing feedback. I did the first one live again just to test it out, got amazing feedback. And then I re-recorded it and put it in my academy so that it is on demand. They can watch it whenever they want to. And then I have 2 e-courses for moms. One called How to Have the Tough Conversations. And those 3 conversations, it talks about 3 conversations. One is about whether your daughter has been raped or molested. That is a huge issue, unfortunately, for girls and boys. Pornography, I think was the second one. And the third one is, how do you talk to your daughter about not having sex if she knows that you had sex because you were a teen mom? And what I say to moms who tell me they feel like they can't have that conversation because they feel like a hypocrite, I say, when you tell your daughter don't do as I do, that's a hypocrite. When you tell your daughter don't do as I did, that's a teacher. And you cannot let your past choices like handicap you or handcuff you to keep you from having conversations with your child so that they can learn from, your choices. And then I have another one for moms. And I'm sorry for the moms of teen boys, because I just started doing stuff for boys, because I talk to girls more than I talk to boys. That's part of the reason. And then somebody told me, I posted, it says, he who chases two rabbits catches neither. So I like had to focus for years. And I was like, I'm only going to talk about girls because that's where I had the most information. And so I did an e-course for moms called How to Raise a Daughter Who's Fab, Focused, Authentic, and Brave. And that one is 10 videos. At the end of each one of those 10 videos, there are 3 actionable steps that you can do immediately to help increase your daughter's self-esteem, her confidence, and help her to love herself. Because I think that's one of the major reasons why teenage girls have told me that they have sex. So this is longer than I thought. I wanted to keep it at 30 minutes. We are at 40 minutes. And I will try to go in the chat or in the comments and answer some of your questions if you ask them. But, here's the thing I was going to tell you too. If you purchase either one of these books on my website versus on Amazon, if you will send me a message, I will personalize and autograph the books for your son or your daughter. I can't, if you do it on Amazon, I can't do it. If you do it on my website, but also if you're out of state, it's cheaper to order on my website than it is on Amazon because Amazon will charge you state taxes. I don't charge state taxes unless you live in Georgia. So if you're out of state, but this is only good through October 31st that I will autograph it. So if you want to get your son or your daughter a book, send me a message. Either, I'm not sure if when you purchase it, there's a place for a note, but go to my website and you can send me a message that way, or Jackie@JackieBruton.com, and just tell me the name that the book was ordered in and your son or your daughter's name, and I will write them a personalized note and put their name on it. So that is it. I hope you have learned something, gotten something from this. If you're watching it via the replay, put replay and then your city or state. And then let me know if there are any other topics that you'd like me to do a live on. I can think of a couple that I really want to do a live on because I think these are topics that I don't think the average adult understands how bad the issue is. And one of them is pornography. Huge issue, not just for boys. Everybody thinks it's just boys, it's girls as well. You would just be floored at some of the letters that I've gotten from students and how young they were when they got exposed to it. It's crazy. I mean, a friend of mine's a youth pastor, and he did a presentation at his church, and the dad came back 2 weeks later and said, I didn't think I had anything to worry about, but you got me scared. I went home and checked my son. Y'all, this was years ago because this was an iPod. This wasn't even a phone. This was an iPod years ago, at least 10 years ago. And he said he checked his son's iPod and found 2 weeks worth of graphic history where his son had been visiting graphic porn sites for the past 2 weeks. His son was 6 years old. 6 years old. He can never unsee what he just saw. Can never unsee what he just saw. And he asked his son, he said, why were you on those sites? And his son said, I was Googling something for my Razor scooter and it just popped up. Because you know what websites, porn sites do? They make their web addresses the misspelling of a common word so that a kid can happen upon it by accident. Because then they'll have a customer for life. And then the little boy said, I didn't know what it was, but then I got curious and there were all these links and I just started clicking links and he just kept going back. He kept going back because now dopamine, same chemical released in the brain when somebody does cocaine is the same chemical that's released in the brain when they watch porn. So anyway, I'll be here all night if I don't stop. So I am going to stop. But thank you so much for joining me. Please share this live. I just want to educate as many parents as possible because it drives me bananas when I hear about some of the choices that are being made by these kids so young. And they're swimming in a cesspool of sexualized content. And you got to protect them. You have to do everything in your power to protect them. And don't let anybody tell you that you're being overprotective. I mean, there is a thing as being too strict. But what I hear from kids is the pendulum has swung the other way oftentimes. Anyway, thank you so much for joining. Okay, I'm going to answer this in the comments because I'm already at 45 minutes. So I will I will jump in the comments and try to answer some questions, but I got a lot of work to do tonight. So be patient with me if I don't get to it tonight. Okay, thank you so much for joining. Bye-bye.